The black door had moved again. Only a few feet now separated it from Daniel's bedroom. His hands trembled as he checked the measuring tape. 11 feet. It was getting closer. Every single night. Exactly 6 feet. No more. No less. Daniel stopped going to work. He disconnected his phone, closed every curtain, locked every window. But none of it mattered, because whatever was happening was already inside the apartment. That afternoon, desperate for answers, Daniel searched through the building's old records in the basement. Most of the files were covered in dust. Many had been damaged by water. Then he found a faded folder labeled Apartment 407. Inside were newspaper clippings dating back almost 40 years. The first headline read, "Young couple vanishes without a trace." The second, "Police find empty apartment. Front door locked from inside." Another article, "Fourth tenant missing. Investigation closed." Every missing tenant had lived in apartment 407. Every case had happened during October. Every victim disappeared exactly 7 nights after reporting strange noises at 3:33 a.m. Daniel's blood ran cold. 7 nights. Tonight was the 6th. There was one final page inside the folder. A handwritten note. The paper was old and stained. The handwriting was shaky. It read, "If you find this, the door has already chosen you. Do not open it. Do not run from it. When it reaches your bedroom, it will ask for permission. Whatever happens, never answer." Daniel read the note again. It will ask for permission. Before he could think any further, his phone rang. The screen displayed, "Unknown caller." He answered. Silence. Then, a voice. Soft, weak, terrified. Daniel. It was his own voice. "Don't speak when it knocks." The call ended. Daniel stood frozen. His own future self had just called him. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat on the floor with a flashlight pointed at his bedroom door. His watch slowly ticked toward 3:33 a.m. 3:31, 3:32, 3:33. The apartment became deathly silent. Then, creak. The sound was no longer coming from the hallway. It came from directly outside his bedroom. Daniel looked under the door. A shadow slowly blocked the light. Something enormous was standing there. Then came 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. A calm voice echoed through the wood. "Daniel." Long silence. Then again, "May I come in?" Daniel remembered the note. Never answer. His heart pounded. The voice became sweeter, almost comforting. "You've been lonely for a long time. I can bring your parents back. I can fix every mistake you've ever made. I can give you another life." Tears filled Daniel's eyes. How could it know those things? The room suddenly became freezing cold. The bedroom walls began to crack. Dark liquid slowly dripped from the ceiling. The voice whispered again, "Just say yes." Daniel closed his eyes, covered his ears, said nothing. Minutes passed. The knocking stopped. The silence returned. Then, a horrible scream echoed through the hallway. Not from the creature. From another person. A woman. She cried for help. "Please, it's coming. Don't leave me." Daniel recognized the voice. It belonged to his next-door neighbor, Sarah. Against every instinct, he unlocked his bedroom door. The hallway was empty. Sarah's apartment door stood wide open. Blood-red footprints led inside. Daniel took one slow step toward the apartment, then another. Inside, the lights flickered. The living room was empty. At the end of the hallway, he saw it. The black door. It wasn't outside his bedroom anymore. It was waiting inside Sarah's apartment. And this time, it was already open. The black door was open, only a few inches. Yet the darkness beyond it was deeper than anything Daniel had ever seen. It wasn't ordinary darkness. It seemed alive, moving, breathing, watching. Sarah's terrified cries had stopped. The apartment became completely silent. Daniel slowly stepped inside. His flashlight barely illuminated the room. The red footprints continued across the wooden floor, straight into the open doorway. He swallowed hard. "Sarah." No answer. Only silence. As he moved closer, the air became freezing cold. Every breath turned into white mist. Then, his flashlight began to flicker. Once, twice, 3 times, and finally, It went out. The apartment was swallowed by darkness. Daniel quickly switched on his phone's flashlight. The weak white beam barely reached the open door. Something was different. The door wasn't standing against a wall anymore. It had become a hallway that stretched far beyond the limits of Sarah's apartment. Impossible. Daniel looked behind him. Sarah's living room was still there. He looked forward again. The endless hallway remained. Every wall inside, it was covered with old wooden doors. Hundreds of them. Each one carried a number. 401, 402, 403, 404. They continued endlessly into the darkness. Daniel noticed one door standing slightly open. The number on it read, 407. His apartment, his own door, was inside this impossible hallway. A cold whisper echoed around him. You finally came. Daniel spun around. Nobody. The whisper came again. Closer this time. We've been waiting. Then every door inside the hallway began opening by itself. Creak, creak, creak. Hundreds of doors slowly opened together. The sound echoed like a choir of broken wood. Inside every doorway, someone was standing. A man, an old woman, a little girl, a police officer, a young couple, all perfectly still. Their faces were pale, their eyes completely black. They silently stared at Daniel. None of them blinked. None of them moved. Daniel stepped backward. His heartbeat pounded inside his ears. Then, every single person smiled. At exactly the same moment. Wide, impossible, unnatural smiles. A child's voice whispered, "He's the next one." Without warning, every figure started walking toward him. Slowly. Together. Step, step, step. Daniel turned and ran. The endless hallway seemed to grow longer with every second. His breathing became heavier. Behind him, hundreds of footsteps echoed together. He reached the door marked 407 and slammed it shut. The footsteps stopped instantly. Silence. Daniel leaned against the door, trying to catch his breath. Then he noticed something scratched into the wood. Fresh words, as if carved only moments ago. You should never have opened the door. Before he could react, a familiar voice came from the other side. Soft, broken, terrified. Daniel, it was Sarah. I found the exit. Please, open the door. Daniel closed his eyes. He remembered the warning. Never answer. Never open the door. But Sarah began crying. I don't want to die. Please. Daniel reached for the handle. His fingers touched the cold metal. And at that exact moment, he heard another voice behind him. His own voice, whispering into his ear. If you open it, you'll never leave. Daniel froze. His hand remained on the handle. Unable to move, Daniel slowly pulled his hand away from the handle. The crying stopped. Instantly. No sobbing. No footsteps. No breathing. Only silence. A terrible silence. Then, Sarah's voice changed. It became deeper. Slower. Almost amused. Good. You're learning. Daniel's blood ran cold. That wasn't Sarah anymore. He backed away from the door. The endless hallway around him began to shake. The wooden walls groaned. Every door slammed shut at once. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoed like thunder. Only one door remained open. At the very end of the hallway, a dim blue light glowed from inside. Daniel had only two choices. Stay where he was, or walk toward the light. He took a deep breath and moved forward. With every step, the hallway became quieter, until even the sound of his own footsteps disappeared. When he finally reached the open doorway, he froze. Inside was his own apartment, exactly as he remembered it. The same couch, the same television, the same family photographs. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. Someone was sitting on the sofa, facing away from him. The man wore a gray hoodie, a black t-shirt, dark blue jeans, and white sneakers. The exact same clothes Daniel was wearing. Slowly, the man stood up. He turned around. Daniel's face turned pale. It was himself, not someone who looked like him, not a twin. It was Daniel, only older. His hair was longer. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. His beard had grown thicker, and a long scar crossed the left side of his face. The older Daniel smiled sadly. You finally made it. The younger Daniel couldn't speak. Who are you? The older man looked down. On what's left of you. The room suddenly grew colder. 20 years ago, I ignored every warning. I opened the door. I thought I could save everyone. He looked directly into Daniel's eyes. I was wrong. Daniel felt his knees weaken. What is this place? The older Daniel walked toward the window. Outside, there was nothing. No city. No sky. Only endless darkness. This door doesn't lead to another room. It feeds on fear, regret, and guilt. Every person who enters becomes trapped in a different version of reality. Daniel whispered, "Then how do I escape?" The older Daniel remained silent for several seconds. Finally, he answered, "One person has to stay behind, so another can leave." Daniel stared at him in disbelief. "No." The older Daniel nodded. "That's why I've been trying to warn you. The phone calls, the recordings, the whisper behind the door. That was me." Tears filled Daniel's eyes. Everything suddenly made sense. The mysterious video, the strange phone call, the whisper saying, "Don't let it reach your door." It had always been him. Suddenly, the apartment began shaking violently. The walls cracked. The lights exploded. The older Daniel looked toward the hallway. His expression changed. Fear. Real fear. "It's here." Heavy footsteps echoed through the darkness. Thud. 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 Something enormous was approaching. Much bigger than a human. A giant shadow slowly appeared at the apartment entrance. It had no face. Only a shifting mass of darkness. Its arms stretched almost to the floor. And where its eyes should have been, two glowing blue lights stared directly at Daniel. The creature smiled. Without moving its mouth, a voice echoed inside Daniel's mind. Time to choose. The older Daniel grabbed the younger Daniel's shoulders. Run! Daniel turned toward the apartment door. But before he could move, the shadow creature raised one enormous hand, and the door behind Daniel slowly slammed shut. Bang! The room went completely dark. The apartment was swallowed by darkness. Daniel couldn't see his own hands. The only things visible were two glowing blue eyes floating in the blackness. The creature took one slow step forward. Thud! The floor cracked beneath its weight. The older Daniel pushed him backward. Don't look into its eyes. Daniel immediately lowered his head. But it was too late. For just a second, their eyes had met. Suddenly, the apartment disappeared. Daniel found himself standing in his childhood home. Warm sunlight streamed through the windows. His mother was in the kitchen, humming softly while preparing breakfast. His father sat in the living room reading the newspaper. Everything looked perfect, exactly as it had been years ago, before they died in a car accident. His mother smiled. "Daniel, come eat." Tears filled his eyes. He slowly walked toward her. This was impossible. He knew it wasn't real. But every sound, every smell, every smile felt real. His father looked up. "We've missed you." Daniel's heart broke. For a moment, he wanted to stay. Then he remembered the older Daniel's warning. The creature feeds on regret. His mother gently held out her hand. "Stay with us. We could be a family again." Daniel closed his eyes. "I am sorry." He whispered, "You aren't really my parents." The room shook violently. His mother's smile slowly disappeared. Her face began to crack like broken porcelain. His father's eyes turned completely black. The walls melted into darkness. Then, everything vanished. Daniel was back inside the apartment. The shadow creature stood only a few feet away. It let out a deep, echoing growl. The older Daniel was lying on the floor, badly injured. "Listen carefully," he said weakly. "The door can only trap people who choose fear over truth. You still have one chance." He pointed toward the black door. It had appeared once again. This time it looked different. Bright white light poured through the cracks. "Open it," the older Daniel whispered. "But don't look back." The creature roared and rushed toward them. Daniel ran. Every step shook the room. The creature was getting closer. Its long fingers almost touched his shoulder. He reached the door. His hand grabbed the handle. Behind him, he heard his mother's voice. "Daniel," then his father's. "Please don't leave us." Then Sarah, "You promised you'd save me." Then, his own voice. "If you open that door, you'll die." Daniel's hand trembled. Every voice sounded real. Every memory pulled him back. He squeezed his eyes shut, took a deep breath, and pulled the handle. The door burst open. A blinding white light filled everything. The creature screamed. Its roar echoed endlessly as its body began to break apart in two. Thousands of black shadows. The apartment, the endless hallway, every mysterious door, started collapsing. The older Daniel smiled peacefully. You did what I never could. Now go. Daniel stepped into the light. He woke up on the floor of apartment 407. Morning sunlight filled the room. Everything looked normal. The hallway ended with a plain white wall. No black door. No estranjes symbols. No blue fog. Daniel packed his belongings that same day. He left apartment 407 forever. Months passed. He never heard the creaking again. He slowly convinced himself it was finally over. Until one rainy evening, a news report appeared on television. Police are investigating the mysterious disappearance of a tenant inside apartment 407. The screen showed the apartment building. A young man stood outside carrying moving boxes. He looked excited about his new home. Daniel stared in horror because he recognized him. It was the same expression, the same confidence that he himself had worn on the day he moved in. The camera zoomed in on the apartment door. 407. At that exact moment, Daniel's phone vibrated. A new message appeared from an unknown number. You escaped, but the door never closes. The screen went black. Exactly at